Minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and now that March Smashness is over, I want to take a moment to give you an update on an important development in Smash Up's future. Before the tournament started, I mentioned that Smash Up Munchkin was out of print, and that it wasn't long after that Titans were no longer available in the AEG store, leading many to wonder if they were out of print as well. I cannot speak to the Titans, but I do have an update for something else. The culling will continue, and the latest victim is the Geeks. Now, I am not a patent lawyer, and I did my best to research and understand all the legal nuances in preparation for this. So if I get something slightly wrong, please forgive me. I am just decomposing what I was told. But if you look carefully at the Geek cards, you will see that they specifically contain a statement in the bottom corner that Tabletop and the Geek and Sundry logo are trademarked by Geek and Sundry. Smash Up had obtained a license to use that logo and the depiction of its assets. That license has unfortunately expired. The Geeks came out in August of 2014, but like many Smash Up sets, were planned well in advance. Sometime after the initial design, Geek and Sundry was purchased by Legendary Digital Networks, which obviously makes licensing a lot more difficult. Add in the fact that Tabletop with Will Wheaton is now defunct, and many of the original parties are no longer involved. Smash Up and AEG were essentially given two options from a legal standpoint. They could reskin the Geeks and change some of the more direct references to the licensed material, such as Will Wheaton or Felicia Day, which would require extensively changing the art for all cards. But that is expensive for starters, and they would need to find new abilities for the cards that were replaced to avoid circumventing the license lapse. That would mean a playtesting session, and when you consider that the Geeks were easily the most controversial faction already, it didn't seem worth it. So they chose the second option to allow the Geeks to go out of print and to abandon them for any future plans. Now, I know the Geeks have their fans. I am not one of them. I don't like playing as or against them. But I must admit, I do feel a bit sad that factions are just getting deprecated. To me, there's a difference between simply banning a faction and trying to erase it from production. What makes matters worse is that there are downstream ramifications to this. First, it creates a bit of an issue with the bigger Geekier box, which is going to be replaced. Because the bigger Geekier box was already printed, the currently produced assets are not affected, but it will have to change for the next print run. I've been told that the Penguins will take the place of the Geeks in future printings. As of now, there are no plans to increase the box size because it's already big enough. I hate carrying it around. I believe the thinking is that, for anyone who is buying the new box, they likely wouldn't have Munchkin or the Geeks, thus they have less of a need for more room. Ironically, the Geeks are not featured at all on the box art itself, only on the bottom of the box where it lists the Geek cards, so that is the only part of it that has to change. The second ramification is that the Geeks will have to be removed from Digital Smash Up, which is simple enough to do on the next update of the app. If you are concerned about losing the Geeks, you may want to consider turning off auto updates for the app. However, this means that you will lose out on the bug fixes that are coming in the next update, and the app change isn't scheduled to take effect until July, so there is still time to make a decision. But the final ramification is the biggest issue in my opinion because of collateral damage, the All-Stars. If you recall, 2 All-Star cards feature the Geeks, Fan and Non-Infinite Loop. It was a tricky question from a legal standpoint. If Smash Up can no longer print the Geek cards in the Geek faction, can they print those cards in a Best Of faction like the equivalent of a clip show? It turns out the answer is no, for the same reason that they simply could not reskin the cards at large, which the All-Stars faction is effectively doing. Another problem is that the likeness of the fan is directly tied to the likeness of a licensed card, which makes it more difficult. So does this mean that we are losing the All-Stars as well? No, thankfully. But the All-Stars are changing. Unlike the Geeks, where the faction itself was licensed, the All-Stars were not, just some of their cards. So in this case, simply replacing the 2 affected cards with other existing cards is a sufficient solution. The only question became, which card should be added? The All-Stars feature every non-Munchkin faction through What Were We Thinking? So that would mean that the options include Big in Japan, that 70s expansion, Oops You Did It Again, International Incident, and Culture Shock. But it's hard to pick any one of those and not the other, and because the titans are so embedded in Big in Japan, it's hard to pick all-star-worthy cards without that overall context, despite the fact that Big in Japan is chronologically next. There were, however, two more options in the Sheep and Penguins. Given what the All-Stars do, they help you get through your deck to get to your better cards faster. I proposed that Fan be replaced with Regurgitating Penguin, which was accepted. It's convenient because Regurgitating Penguin is still 2 power, so the overall power doesn't change, and the idea of deck filtering fits in perfectly with their existing strategy. For the action, I suggested the Hatching. It combines well with Granny and Begin the Summoning. Just as the Geeks got 2 representatives, so would the Penguins, and they are replacing the Geeks in the All-Star box anyway. It would be a seamless transition. But this was not accepted for reasons that honestly make me mad. First, the powers that be did not want a double feature to be represented in the All-Star deck, which the Hatching is. I pointed out that there were several double features already, and when they were made aware of that, they wanted to stop it from happening more. They also countered that the card wasn't unique enough, whereas Non-Infinite Loop was very unique, and AEG pointed to cards like Friendship Power and Favor of Dionysius as very unique cards that were worthy of being in the deck. You know, like the ultra-unique Seeing Stars. So instead, someone suggested that Hello Dolly become the replacement for Non-Infinite Loop, and it was accepted. This is a terrible idea in my opinion. Hello Dolly already creates so much rules confusion, why would you use it twice? Now we have to contend with the fact that I could play an action, you could play Hello Dolly, and I could play my Hello Dolly to copy your Hello Dolly, effectively playing my action twice. Which, ironically, is ridiculously close to what Non-Infinite Loop does, just all at once. I pleaded my case as best as possible, because the Hatching makes so much sense for the All-Stars, but the Hello Dolly card was chosen instead. So on the next print run of the All-Stars, you will see 2 new cards with new art, and one of them is a fantastic choice. Now, for those who are concerned that licensing deals will have an impact on the next Smash-Up set, do not worry. AEG has taken specific steps to ensure that this license is held in perpetuum, which means that they can renew the license indefinitely as long as they agree to the existing terms plus an inflation adjustment. They have a 2-year period in which the license can lapse, but can be relicensed at additional cost should something change. So we should not have to worry about deprecated factions any longer due to licensing issues. So I know that's a lot to take in, and I care more about the impact to the All-Stars and the Geeks personally. What do you think of these changes? Will you miss the Geeks? What cards would you want to see in the All-Stars? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Oh, and April Fools! I've been waiting a long time to do that. Don't add any spoilers in the comments. Don't ruin it for anyone else. Let's shut it down.